How would you feel if a company that you're invested in spends all its available cash on one big idea? An idea that, for the most part, is still largely theoretical. The tech sector is set to invest as much as $1 trillion in artificial intelligence over the next few years, but there are still big questions about the returns on that spending. Should investors be worried, or is the fear of missing out too big to ignore? Jonny, you're a technology analyst. How do you feel about the scale of this investment?
I mean, the scale's a little bit large at this point. Let's face it, this is Manhattan project levels of spending. This is country project levels of spending. It is not just kind of corporates here. It's companies which are the size of small nation states putting their chips all in on the capex. And what does that tell you? It tells you that the prize is great. It tells you that they think this is going to drastically change not just their part of the woods, but the whole economy. But it also means that, the stakes are higher, and you need to see and find evidence of macro level benefits to justify that spending.
Big prize, big questions. I'm Seb Morton-Clark, and this is Fidelity Answers, the series where we put the questions investors are asking to the people managing their money. And our question today: why is Silicon Valley so obsessed with AI, and what can investors do about it? Well, with me to untangle some of the wires of the AI revolution is Jonny Tsang. Jonny, you spend your days assessing the fundamentals of these large tech companies, and you've just got back from a research trip in Silicon Valley. What's the AI vibe like there at the moment?
The AI vibe is still white hot, but it is evolving. And it's interesting because we go to Silicon Valley every year, sometimes more than once a year. So seeing where things were in June of 23, when AI was just started sparking off. June of 24, we saw Anthropic. People are talking about kind of the big picture scaling laws. And it feels in June of 25, people become more focused on how to take those scaling laws and turn them into products. And I would say just in time, because we've been waiting some years now to see kind of products which people can put into their hands and generate real revenues. I think, there's excitement around particular agentic AI as applied to kind of call centers and customer relationships. This was one of the great promises 2 years ago. You could take AI to a call center and, replace a lot of human labor. And we saw kind of Zoom, we saw Sierra AI, we talked to T-Mobile and how they're working with OpenAI. I think these systems are starting to come to a point where they can be put in the real world and they can drive real world benefits. Okay, we're going to come back to a lot of those names that you've just mentioned there. The vibes are strong, but how are they going to translate into returns? Well, bringing the investment views to the studio today are two of Fidelity's portfolio managers. We have Rosanna Bucheri, a value investor who looks at a range of companies across the US and how they might benefit from the technology that we're talking about today. And Dmitry Solomakhin, a long and short investor who, let's just say, is not 100% convinced by all of this AI hype. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you both a massively simplified question here, just to get going and to sort of understand your positions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate potential returns of AI-specific technology in, say, the next 10 years? 1 being not a dime, 10 being eye-watering gains. I'm going to start with you, Rosanna.
I think we are at 6 or 7, because I think what Jonny said actually is important. Maybe if you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, I was no way. I don't understand, apart from my kids cheating on how to write the essay. But now you start to seeing a little bit more application or help in doing things that actually can create savings for companies. So I think we are getting there. Maybe we don't know yet what is going to be the killer app.
And Dmitry, what about you? Where are you on the scale?
I think there will be a small group who will do 12 out of 10, maybe. And then a big group who will do 0.
Okay.
Or maybe negative, deeply negative. And then how you want to weight it, it's,
Yeah, and are you using AI yourself at the moment for anything?
I tried a little bit. Like with Rosanna, our kids tried these things as well. Not particularly successful, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, for me, I use it to search for things. I use it to maybe summarize information, right? Look at it. The problem is it's a bit spoon-fed. That's the issue, right? So you get given an answer, you don't know if it's good or not. Maybe you can go to a different model, get the same answer, different answers. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So we've got a good sense there then of where you both sit. Jonny, let's try, shall we, for a moment to get inside the heads of some of these tech leaders, because the psychology here is perhaps sort of part of the story about what we're seeing happening in terms of investment and in terms of the sort of practicalities of this trend. So why are the likes of Mark Zuckerberg betting the house on AI? Is there really a clear profit motive here?
I mean, it's more than that. It's existential. If your company no longer exists, is out of business, then there is no profit. And you can disagree about the kind of level of paranoia in the Valley, but they've all read The Innovator's Dilemma, where if you're an incumbent, you get disrupted, you're dead. They've all seen, Nokia, IBM, maybe I was doing a comeback, but Nokia, IBM, the old days, they were the kings, they got disrupted, they're dead. And especially someone like Zuckerberg, even in his career, he saw that, when Facebook IPO'd, they were late to mobile and their mobile app was not good. And that almost killed the company. And he swore to himself, I will never miss the next platform. I will never miss the next smartphone jump. And so first he did Oculus and bet on the metaverse. He's taken Meta towards AI for the same reason, because, he wants to own the next platform. And he thinks if he doesn't own it, he's dead. So that's his motive.
And what is it that they see themselves working towards here? What is it they're really trying to achieve?
Each of them wants to be, the companion which is by your side every minute of the day, which you work with, you interactive, which you share your thought process with, and they will know everything about you. They will know your intent, and they're going to try to sell you stuff on that.
Rosanna, what do you think's driving this phenomenal investment?
So it's interesting because I was actually on the 2023 Silicon Valley trip, and for me there is one level that is a little bit of ego. All these guys, they're super embedded in all the tech, and they want to be the first. At the time it was AGI. Now probably they're talking about the super intelligence. So there is a little bit of that. The second thing is probably that there is now the realization, and I think Jonny has a point, that we're going in a world where the winner is a winner takes it all, and if you're and things are moving super fast, and so if you're not there, then it's too late. And maybe 10 years ago, you had the time to come. I always remember the fact that Apple didn't come up with the iPhone first, the mobile phone, but they came out with the best. I'm not sure nowadays at the speed at which technology goes and the amount of money that the company are invested, that actually you can afford to wait and see what's happening and then jump on the ship.
Okay, so as Jonny said, paranoia.
Exactly, and there's the idea of what they call recursive self-improvement, that the first guy to get the superintelligence will use that to make itself even better. So if you get to a certain point before everyone else, you reach escape velocity, your AI gets a lot better, it makes new discoveries, new sciences, and suddenly no one can stop you. And again, in the old days, Apple would wait and be last but best. But if you wait and be last but best, people like Zuckerberg fear that he'll be just in the distance.
Dmitry, we've been talking a lot about the benefits of AI for some time. There's still not all that much to show for it, although we're going to come back to Jonny and hear a little bit about what's been happening in Silicon Valley. You think investors should be much more skeptical?
Maybe to take a step back, right? So if you look at technology overall, I've seen a number of cases where someone comes up with a really next big thing. When the thing actually launches, no one thinks of it this way. Facebook was created, out of a dorm room by accident after a night out, pretty much, right? When Apple launched iPhone, I think the stock went down because people said, what is it? You don't know how to make this. You are in PCs. This is not your core business. Google was kind of along the same lines, right? When Amazon launched, it was something completely different. And then it becomes big or not. But, when everyone thinks it's going to be big, then the question is, will it really be? Because it's not what happened historically, so to speak.
Jonny, to what extent is this a cyclical versus structural story?
So much investing is trying to disentangle the structural from the cyclical. And the cyclical simply is that large hyperscalers get into their head to do a big investment cycle. They invest for 12 months, 24 months, then they take a pause, and then there's a gap. And the structural view says that it's going up and it's going to go up forever. And you can argue that both are true, but there are times when people get overexcited about one end of it. And that's the opportunity, because when people get overexcited about something that's structural but is actually cyclical, you can stay on the sidelines. When people get overly depressed about something that is cyclical but is actually structural, then you get a chance to buy, unimaginable gains at a huge discount. So in some ways, that's 90% of the game.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out structural from cyclical.
But we need to separate. We are talking about the structural versus cyclical of the investment, or about the technologies, just as something that it's a hype for 2 or 3 years and then is going to morph in something else. Because I think that point that Jonny is making is right in terms of how to judge the investment. But if you step back and for me, the big question is, do we think it's really a breakthrough technology that is going to structurally change something? I think that now that we start seeing a little bit application, yes. I mean, to me, it sounds like we need to pay attention, because it's a structural change in the technology. And so there's going to be changes for years and years to come. But the investment, that's the big question mark right now. And of course, when you have this big structural change, you always have the hype and everything go up, and then people are start asking the question. Maybe we were a little bit earlier as an investor to ask, okay, where is the return on this investment? Mm-hmm. Because if the return, we are going to have it only 3 years of magic stuff, then it's not worth it. If you're going to have 20 years of exceptional value creation and revenue, then it makes sense.
And I think that is an important differentiation you make there, Rosanna. And I suppose, Dmitry, in terms of sort of the valuations that we've been seeing that are associated with these AI trends, do you think that's symptomatic of other things that are going on in equity markets at the moment?
US market has been driven by stories and by momentum for the last probably number of years. As I always say, certain parts of the market in the US, I think, for lack of the better word, is a bubble. Let's put it this way, and there is just manifestation, one of the manifestations, so to speak. Market structure has changed. You have a lot more retail investors. You have passives. You have quantitative funds. All this kind of stuff. Fundamentals, we are minority, maybe 8% of the total volume, if at all, very, very small. And I think it all shows, because when there's a theme, almost always the theme is, I have no doubt that AI as a technology is real and it's structural. It'll continue for multi-decades, just like electric vehicles few years ago, some other clean tech, but the market takes this theme and takes it out of the proportion, kind of magnifies it, multiplies it, extrapolates it, right? And that's how bubbles are kind of made.
So there's a powerful narrative that's sort of taking hold here at the moment. Rosanna, do you agree? Is this mostly momentum trend, or are you're seeing value there?
No, it's a lot of momentum, and it's been very difficult to distinguish the value. Now, if you had been thinking through, and you could have found some value early on, because people immediately, when there is a hype, immediately think about the first derivative, and you can make money if you start thinking about the second and third derivative. And effectively, if you thought about, oh great, there is this new technology, but they need to invest in electricity. Well, they need the basic kit for the data center. They need the power. Well, you need the copper, you need the wire, you need the electricity, you need the nuclear. But a lot of things, like Dmitry said, then have been sucked up into a little bit the bubble. You can still find here and there some names that maybe are wrongly classifying all the industry, but in reality they benefit because they provide the little kit and they are second and third derivative, but it's very, very difficult.
These things also get priced in very, very quickly, right? Even second and third derivative, because market is smart.
We're going to come back to the sort of ecosystem surrounding all of this in a bit, because I think that is really interesting. Jonny, the problem, if you want to call it that some of these companies are facing, is that they just have so much cash on their books. They need something to do with it. If they weren't putting it into AI, what else would they be doing with it?
We'd like to think they'd be returning it to shareholders, but I don't think that's the mentality of the value. And there always is a shiny dream they'll chase. As I said, people chasing the metaverse a few years ago, people chasing crypto. So people will be chasing some shiny new technology. I think at least the one they're chasing this time is something that is doing something that is genuinely different. And you can genuinely see how, if it fulfills, what is promised, you can apply that to a business process or a workflow or a real automation of a human job. The question isn't, is the technology up to scratch today? Because it isn't, because it needs to improve. The question is, will the technology improve to match those dreams in the next few years?
Well, as we mentioned, you were in Silicon Valley recently, and we like to talk a lot at Fidelity about bottom-up research in the companies that we invest in. What were the most compelling examples you saw of the technology on this trip and how it was being used?
So you can think about technology being applied in the consumer area and the business or the enterprise area. Consumer is easier to drive adoption. It's quicker times. It's everyone doing a picture on OpenAI of their family as a cartoon character. But that is kind of low barrier to entry, and that is easy come, easy go. What impressed me is more people applying it to enterprise, which is a harder problem, but a stickier business and also be a higher quality cash flow. We went to Autodesk and we saw how designers, designing real buildings, were using this to save time and accelerate the process, figuring out, critical safety information and data and modeling. And in a fraction of what it will take otherwise. And I think, as I said earlier, I think the kind of the customer interaction call center business, that is how businesses talk to their end users. That is the primary point of contact. And you phone up your mobile provider or your TV provider, you want to quit. The service is terrible. If they can improve their retention rate by 5%, 6%, 7%, that's a huge saving. And we see Sierra, they promised to improve the retention rate by 10 to 40%. And you kind of think, that is not just a dollar saved, that is a future cash flow, put back into place.
Let's hear now from Clay Bavor, who is co-founder of Sierra AI. So it's a fast-moving startup who, as you said, looking to transform the way that customers engage with companies.
AI agents are a new type of software that for the first time can reason, make decisions, take action, and with which you can converse fluently, just as you would with a person. We think that's a big deal for every type of software. Where we at Sierra are focused are on building customer-facing agents for businesses. So think a consumer has a question about a product or a challenge with setting up a new device, or maybe something has gone on the fritz. With a Sierra agent, that customer can call in or chat in and interact with an AI agent that can answer questions about the business of the product, that can help troubleshoot, and can actually take action and solve the problem itself. So we think there's going to be a big deal in the context of how businesses interact with their customers, from product recommendations, sign up, setup, customer service, and support, and will get us far away from those days of waiting on hold or saying representative when you're stuck, right, with an automated phone system. Because, again, these AI agents can reason, think, decide, take action. And in the context of a business interacting with its customers, we think that's the future.
That's Sierra AI co-founder Clay Bavor speaking there. So, Jonny, how confident are you that this is an area where we're actually seeing gains being made by these companies?
I think it's happening. And just in time, because as I said, this is something people were hoping for 2 years ago and it hadn't happened yet. I've seen the companies, I've met them, I've seen the products demoed, I've listened into calls. And separate from that, I've seen the advancements in the capabilities of the models and seen how the reasoning progress allows you to make them smarter and maybe to build the kind of ring fences and the guardrails around that. Agentic AI is an AI which can plan things and can use tools to achieve its objectives. That tool use is a critical unlock. It's so much more powerful than you think. If you look at OpenAI's deep research, I would encourage everyone to try it out. Deep research is simply a large language model with one simple tool use, web search. And now if you look at OpenAI's agents, they've given it another tool use, web search, web operation, and the ability to program code. And remember, if you can program code, then your model can do anything any computer can do, because all computers do is run code.
Okay, so one of the companies you mentioned, Autodesk, they create architecture, manufacturing, and design software, as you mentioned. Mike Haley is a senior vice president of research there, and he told the team how they're using AI internally across almost everything they do.
AI is bringing an incredible disruption to the whole field of software engineering right now. The way code gets generated, and we can use large language models to generate code. These models can also be used to test code. They can even be used on the security side, to validate software and to make sure it's secure. They can be used in operations to respond to issues. And then outside of the technology realm, they can even be used on our sort of marketing and sales side as well. So there is probably not a branch of Autodesk today that is not being radically disrupted by AI. And I would say somewhere in the order of 50% of our staff right now, certainly on the engineering side, is now using these AI tools on a daily basis. And that's only going to grow.
So there's an example of how a company is using this technology to improve its internal efficiency and productivity. Is that something that you're seeing beginning to roll out at scale?
I think if you go to Silicon Valley, you can see the software companies, they are dog fooding the product. They are the tip of the spear. One of the killer apps for AI so far has been coding. And obviously software companies, what they do is they build code all day. We spoke to one company in Silicon Valley and they said that 80% of their code internally is now written by AI agents. And you need to look at this in the context of the industry, not just individual companies, because the point is, out there, everyone is doing it. So if you don't adopt these tools, you get left behind. And it is this prisoner's dilemma, on a kind of industry scale here, that people can't afford to stay behind. They have to invest because everyone else is doing it. That cuts both ways. The whole industry can get a lot more productive, or the whole industry can go chasing the bubble, and suddenly they found that no one's holding the ball.
Coding, customer services, it's sort of all well and good, but if that's the only areas where we're seeing gains, that's not going to justify the billions that is being spent on this technology, is it?
No, and I think one mistake people make is try to look at the new shiny things you can apply this to. And there's a whole bunch of activity which it is already being applied to in creating value. I mean, two examples here, Amazon have been applying LLMs to the recommender engine on the Amazon front page. The Amazon front page shows you 100 things to buy. And if you can improve the click-through rate on that by 1% across the Amazon estate, that justifies a huge amount of spend. And you look at Meta, Facebook, Apple made changes to the algorithm and cut off their ad tracking signal. And they went back out and bought a huge fleet of GPUs and retooled their recommender system using indirect signals. And you see kind of Facebook's cost per click, revenue per click, and their top line accelerating across a huge, estate of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram users. So you don't just look for the shiny new application. Look how it's been applied in plain sight.
I think, John, you hit on something very, very important, very key, because there are a lot of anecdotes. What we need to see happen, we need to see these anecdotes translate into something tangible, right? If someone improves ad targeting or customer service or backend software development, you want to see either top line inflection or operating margin improvement, or ideally both. So when we start seeing this, then we can tell, yes, this is tangible value. I can quantify it. I know how to measure it, offset versus my initial investment spent, and then, justify the return or not justify the return. So that's something that's very, very important to monitor. In terms of call center operators, I mean, the big players in the space have stopped being pure call center operators maybe 15 years ago. It's usually a very integrated online, offline call center solution. So I own some names which are viewed as AI losers on that point, basically. Because I think the reality is a lot more nuanced. Many customers are running pilot programs, which are working amazingly well, as pilots always do, with external consultants. But then when you try to implement these, then reality bites, and the outcome is not as what they thought it was going to be. And then you go to your legacy player and ask for help.
You say reality bites. What is it that's biting? What is it that's not working as it should?
It's very easy to put together a test case that works in a controlled environment. It's a lot more difficult to apply it to real life when things are just different. That's where the industry expertise comes into play, because you need to know very well what processes you want to automate, what are possible interactions, how does the flow go. It took these players, 30, 40 years to gather this info, so it will take a while to implement, yeah.
Okay.
But it's an important point because that Dmitry, because for the moment the market is doing, that's the value win, the AI winner, and that's the AI loser. completely drastic. It's a black and white, without in reality understanding what is the key to get these things work is actually have the knowledge of what is the success in reaching that, and above all have the data. That's the sacred ingredient in all that, because it's all these new company that piggy bank on data that is available on the web or on your data on what you like, but company that have been already in a sector, music, the call center, for example, they know exactly, that have years since they know exactly what is needed, what is the sequential of the things that need to be asked. It's true that they have a competitive advantage, and if they've not been sleepy and actually they've been investing and being able to jump on the wagon, actually that's where you can make a lot of money, because they're going to come out with the best probably solution for what it is the problem that needs to be solved.
And Rosanna, is there anything else that you've heard from sort of Jonny's Silicon Valley trip, or the sound bites we listened to just there? Anything there that sort of piques your interest from a sort of value investing standpoint? My
conclusion was a little bit your question. I mean, if it's just a call center and something else, what's the point of all this money? But in reality, above all meeting company, you start seeing that there is a real opportunity in terms of productivity, and it goes across different kind of sector. Agriculture, you meet deer, with the data, the historic data that they have now, instead of having people to go through the data, boom, you crunch the data, you have
this is
optimal...
tractor manufacturers.
Yeah, tractor manufacturers. So you give the data immediately, where you have to plant, how you have to plant, which day of the year you have to plant. So it's all productivity improvement that benefit. And you can imagine people, farmers in this case, big farmers that are happy to pay for that, because for them it means, better revenue. I can have a better crop. I've seen it in video games. I mean, and it's not only the point, for example, that Jonny was making, it's coding, because that was my first thing. They're going to save a lot of money. They don't need all these coders, all these creative director. But actually, the point is, no, they are becoming much quicker in optimizing games. And for example, the team of the old FIFA game, the football, say, with AI, they are now able to do 11,000, and I found an astonishing number, shape and position of the head of the player to make the game even more real, versus in the past when there was just people coding only 50 or 100. So you can see not only for them, they do it quickly, but it's actually better, and they're able to make the engagement better, and the point of Dmitry. And then you're going to see revenue and productivity in terms of a margin.
Yeah. So you do agree, Dmitry, so you buy into the productivity argument on 100%. The AI side.
The tech has always been about productivity, always, any tech, right? And this is maybe takes it to completely new level. 100% agree.
So, Jonny, I just want to broaden our view a little bit beyond the US. Obviously, you also look at companies out in Asia. I'm interested to know, the AI vibe that we were talking about earlier. Is it the same for companies out there?
In Asia, look, there's always going to be excitement down the supply chain. And it's great we have analysts on the ground in Korea, in Japan, in Hong Kong, in Shanghai. You can be all over this, because those stocks move with incredible velocity. And you can catch the theme but be 3 days late on the stock. So in Asia, there's a lot of excitement around kind of the AI and the evolving AI architecture. What will be the networking architecture? What will be the optical? What will be the ASIC demand? What will be the packaging? And so there's always opportunities and new things happening there. I think in Asia, you also need to think about China, which is the AI superpower. And China is slightly strange in that it either exists or doesn't exist in investors' mind. Either it's uninvestable or it's the future. The truth is China has always been the future. China is leading almost because of US trade restrictions and export restrictions on China, which has meant the Chinese have had to double down and be even smarter and be even more, advanced with their AI investment and modeling. We've all seen DeepSeek. We've all seen the effect that has on stocks. So in China's an area again where we have people on the ground, and there are opportunities in private and public markets. Setting aside regions, I also think about other areas in tech and other adjacencies. I mean, To be honest, my companies are the same as companies are the arms dealers, but the software companies are going to be aware that their focus is going to move. And there's an enormous debate here in software. Who will win? The companies with the best technology and the best models, or the companies with the distribution and the chokehold on customer business processes in real world? And that to me is one of the great unanswered questions at this point, whether product will win or distribution will win.
Can I add something? Because I think it was an important point that Jonny was making on your question on China. Because we come from a place where we were thinking China produce, the US innovate, and Europe regulate. Well, it looks like Europe keep on regulating, but the China and US is blurring. The US now wants to produce because they cannot be dependent, and China has kept up the pace in terms of innovation. So we need to be really open-minded of where these things is going.
So if they're very invested side, there's always the opportunity to invest in the companies, the also loser. People think it's going to be dead from AI, when actually maybe it's not as dead as you think, or maybe it will survive. And as the market comes to appreciate that, you have the upside from the shift in perception, but you don't have to take the risk on the high valuation.
Yes.
So there's always that avenue.
That's another aspect to be watching for. Okay, well, look, thank you very much, everyone, for all of your thoughts. I think just if we can come back to the original question, which is, why is Silicon Valley so obsessed with AI and what can investors do about it? Perhaps you can each give me sort of one answer that you would like our listeners to go away with today in response to that question. Dmitry, maybe if I start with you.
I think technology entrepreneurs have always been driven by growth and momentum. Right now, the market is very sort of constructive on that matter. We go from one growth story to the next growth story, and AI is being viewed, rightly or not, as a next huge thing.
And Rosanna?
I mean, for me, is why they are so obsessed, because they want to be the first, and the first, they have in the back of their mind that the first is gonna take it all. What investors should pay attention for me is be open-minded of where the killer app is gonna come, and you wanna invest and be there.
Jonny?
Hunt people who disagree with you. I spend a lot of time trying to find people who think AI is a terrible idea and is going to go bust, and trying to understand their arguments. I am personally bullish on AI, but I want to know that if I'm wrong, why will I be wrong? I'm not interested in a paper which says that China has a great new model. I'm interested in a paper which says that reasoning models have a limit and they can't get any better. Because if I can show that view is wrong, then my view is right.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I think there's a general that have an open mind, be wary to the movements of markets and the narratives that markets hold on to, but test the arguments on a fair basis. I think all that's extremely valuable advice for our listeners. So that's almost all we have time for today. But before I let you go, we're going to play hotcakes and hot potatoes. What are you buying like a hotcake, and what are you dropping like a hot potato? Rosanna, let's start with you.
Buying as a hotcake, transport companies. They've been in the doldrum for now almost 3 years. Selling, well, actually food. I have a bigger conundrum. I think that everybody's eating less, or something is going on, or all the money is going in AI and in nothing else. But,
so your hot potatoes are food companies. Excellent. All right, Jonny.
I think the hotcake is any company, the software companies which have distribution into the customer, who will own the customer, own the business process, and will be winners and be able to, shove this AI stuff down their pipe. I think conversely, the losers, kind of picking on what Rosanna said, the companies who do not own their data, the companies who are going to be commoditized. I am neck deep in kind of startups coming to me with a thin wrapper which will help investment management, buy-side asset management, run the processes smarter, and none of them own their data. And they're all just putting the same prompts around the same models, and they're all going to get blown away.
Okay, so data is the key, as always. And Dmitry, your hotcakes and hot potatoes.
I would be buying exposure to China, more specifically China consumer, nothing to do with AI. And I would stay away from overhyped AI stocks. as much as I can.
Okay, well then that's a good place to finish the conversation. And that really is all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Jonny Tsang, Rosanna Bucheri and Dmitry Solomakhin, and thank you for listening. You can find out more on the topics we've discussed today on your local Fidelity website or at fidelityinternational.com, including a video documenting Jonny's research trip to Silicon Valley, where you can hear more from him and the portfolio managers on the ground. We'll also pop a link in the show notes. It's definitely worth a watch. The producers today were Holly Eastman and Patrick Graham, with production support from Alex Wilcox. We'll be back in September, but for now, from all of us at Fidelity, goodbye.